Hello, Privyet. In this video, I'm going to be looking at this Cold War era padlock and how we can pick it and why we can pick it that way. I'm not sure the proper term for it, if you want to call it a lever lock or a tab lock or a push key lock. I've seen it called different things. The closest brand name I can see for this lock is a Guri lock, Guri, from East Germany during the Cold War. It's very similar to that. It's not identical, but it's very similar. If you're interested in a video on those, I would definitely check out Lockpicking Paul's video from a few months ago where he repairs one. So I'm going to start out showing you how you can pick this pretty quick. And then if you want to stick around, I'll explain why that works and show how the lock operates. All right, so to pick this, I'm going to be using two tools. I'm going to be using this Peterson Adams Right bypass tool, but any sort of thin metal hook should work for you, and something where you can push down straight kind of hard. You can even use a hook pick if you want. This is based off the method that Lockpicking Paul used for his Guri lock. It's very similar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to come up from the top, I'm going to scoop up and twist over and then pull down on some levers. Up there. I'm sure if you can see that on camera there, a couple of levers I'm pulling down. When I see those two levers are down, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tool, I'm going to come over to the left side, I'm going to feel what feels like a little wall, and I'm just going to push straight down. Alright, and you can see that we open the lock that way. Your lock may not open when you push straight down, okay? So you may push down and it doesn't pop open. If that happens, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to pull your tool out, and then you're going to do the same thing, wrap around the bottom side, and you're going to pull up on the bottom levers, okay? So on this particular lock, if I reset everything, on this particular lock, you can see I can do it just by doing the top levers. But yours may not work that way. You may have to hold down the tension and then go to the bottom and scoop up as well. Okay, so, and that's how you can pop this open pretty quickly. I've heard some people, I've looked at a couple other videos of people opening these, and they have mentioned how they're not picking it, they're bypassing it. I don't think that's true. I think they're actually picking it and don't realize it. But I'll get into that. If you want to see how it works, stick around and we'll talk about it a little bit. Okay. So what is the normal function of the lock? Here is the key. It's kind of an interesting key. Looks like it's just stamped out of metal. We can insert our key. Lock pops open. It is key retaining. The key does not come out while the bolt is open. We close the bolt. We can pull the key out. This isn't mirrored, so it doesn't go in the opposite direction. And if we want, we can actually remove the key by pushing down on here. We can remove the key, but we can't close the bolt. And to reset that, we gotta push this back, and then we can lock it like normal. So that's not how it's intended to be locked, but I just show it for noting it. One of the things I want to point out about that, though, is if you look here, if I pop this open and I press down here to remove the key, I can't push this far enough to close the bolt, which is a pretty good indicator that you're probably not going to be able to bypass it. It's not a complete indicator, but it is an indicator. And I'll show you why I don't think anyone's actually bypassing it, but yeah, let's take a look at it. So what's happening when you put your key in? So if you see here, we've got the bolt coming down here. It's held in place by this carriage. This carriage has a little piece of metal that's wrapping right there, holding it in. This carriage comes along the front, and then you can see where I'm just going to call these mounting rivets is what I'll call them for lack of a better term. These rivets, mounting rivets in the front, if you look on the side here, there's these little tabs that are hitting them. So we've got 2 on the bottom here and 2 on the top here. And these correspond to the levers inside this carriage. When these tabs are up, they run into these little mounting bars, and the carriage cannot go to the right. When we insert the proper key, those go down, the carriage goes to the right, and the lock pops open. If we try to remove the key with the bolt or with the lock open, this spring right here doesn't come all the way down. It prevents the carriage from going all the way left. When the carriage can't go all the way left, those levers can't go all the way back up, and the key gets pinched in place, and we can't remove the key. When we close this carriage can get pushed to the left. There'd normally be a spring right here, and then we can remove the key because those levers can go up. So, sorry, I missed that. There should be a spring right here. This was that spring. It got damaged when I took it apart. I think it would be an easy fix. You just need a spring small enough to push to the left that's got some force pushing to the left, but can still allow this to move about 1/4 inch to the right to let the bolt go up. If you look on the inside here, there is a little spring right here and right here that clamps down on those levers, and it helps reset them when you remove the key, so that these should pop back up and block everything. There are some differences on this compared to the Guri lock. I think the spring mechanism up here at the top is slightly different on the Guri lock. The Guri lock has 5 levers, and this one only has 4. And I'm not sure what other differences there are. So, what are the problems with this design? The biggest problem that I see first is that the levers cannot be overset. If you push down this lever, if I push down on it, no matter how far I push down on it, as long as I clear this mounting bar, I'm good to go. There's no corresponding piece that comes out at the bottom here or up here to catch onto these bars and prevent you from pushing down too far. So that means as long as we pull down on it and clear this, we're good to go. So that's the first problem I see. The second problem I see is that these springs, and right now it seems to be, well, no, even here you can see, I'm not sure why, but these springs don't seem to perfectly reset these levers all the time. So right here, where I should have 2 levers blocking the top side, I really only have 1 lever blocking the top side, because the one beneath it isn't getting reset properly. So it's not even fully resetting to lock the lock back in place. So instead of having 4 levers actually blocking this from opening, we have at most 3 right now. The other thing I noticed is there does seem to be a bit of play in the carriage inside the lock. And I'm not sure if you noticed that, but I was able to push up on the carriage enough that it shifted to the right some. And now this lever down here on the bottom is no longer binding. And that's just from the play in the carriage. And you can actually adjust the carriage position from the outside. So that's the second big fault I see, is that the tolerances are so large you can unbind things just by sort of playing with that, and that it doesn't force all of those to be bound. So that's the second big issue. And then I think the third big issue is that there's lots of open space to reach in with other tools. So we have plenty of space to take this tool and reach up here and grab those levers like that. And that's what lockpicking Paul also found for the Guri lock that was helpful for him, was you can single pin pick this by putting force against the carriage, by pushing the carriage to the right. You can do that even on this model, you can do that just by sliding it in here and pushing down like so, and you're applying force. And you can do that, and then you can single pin pick it, to speak, by lifting each lever up and down. you don't actually have to lift them up and down. You just have to pull the levers in to clear it. But it is actually a pain to get a tool in there and just select the correct lever and not accidentally bump the other one back up. It's kind of a pain. So what lockpicking Paul did was, if I understood correctly, the way he did it on the Guri was that he came in and he was hooking them down here. And he was hooking an individual one and pulling them up one at a time, I believe. This tool that I have, none of the tools I had were catching down there and strong enough to pull it up. But this tool was strong enough to pull them down. If I went straight like that, I could get it to work. There is another avenue I think that you could use to try to pick it or to bypass it, which is this gap down here at the bottom. It is smaller when it's all sealed up properly, but it is still enough that I can put this in there easily, and I can move it around. And let's see here, yeah, I can get it towards the top a little bit. But either way, I can very quickly get this in this side there. You can see here, if I show you on this angle, we can go in and we can push against the levers there, or we could go around and then try to pull up. See if we can go through the side here. Yep. Try to pull down like that. So that little space down there is a liability, I think. So yeah, I think that those are the major issues I see with this design. So my personal opinion is I'm not a super big fan of this lock design. You know, sometimes there's lock designs where it's like, okay, it's really simple, but it's you know, it's effective, or it looks like it'll really hold up to a really tough environment. But what I see here is that these aren't always resetting. Even with these massive kind of springs on the top here, you don't have these properly resetting all the time. You've got this spring getting broken here, which, I mean, that's kind of strange to me. You've got all this space, you would think you would have a strong enough spring that didn't really snap like that. I would expect it to hold up, like, just to be a little bit tougher with all the big components they have there. So it's not especially tough or resilient either. So I don't see a lot of advantages to this lock design personally. It is interesting. I do think it is an interesting design and not something you typically see. So it's kind of fun to look at and to play with as far as picking. But I don't think it's a lock design we want to start using more often. Yeah. So I don't know if I had already mentioned it, so I just want to go ahead and just in case I didn't mention it. There is a stamp here. Nigby had sent me a link to these different, it's a Russian website that looks at the different stamps for a bunch of different lock manufacturers in the Soviet Union, so you can see where a lock was made and roughly what time it was. And I didn't find this stamp on that forum, so I wasn't able to look up this specific lock, and it is the same for this one. These both have the same stamp on it. However, when I was watching other people's videos, I did see other stamps on this, so I think this design was also made at different places throughout the Soviet Union. So while these two may have been made in Ukraine, possibly, there may be other ones that look just like this that were made at another plant at another location in the Soviet Union. And I think that's all I've got. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, do let me know down in the comments below. And I hope you enjoyed. And thank you for watching. Большое спасибо.